All right, so that 4-person crew that was arriving here, well, first off, all 4 of them would have started their day at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, which, if you drew a straight line from here in that direction, we'd be about 18 miles that way. So at 0700 hours, those 4 crew members would have had a briefing and they would have made that trek out this way. However, to get here back then, there were only dirt roads. So when we get our monsoon rains in the summer months, heavy torrential downpours, there was a good chance those dirt roads would be flooded out and not passable by vehicle. Well, that crew still had to get here, no matter what. There was no Christmases, New Year's days here at the missile silo. So if they couldn't get here by vehicle for any reason, they would have actually airlifted that crew in here on a Huey like you see behind you over here. So no matter how they got here though, they would not be able to land or park right where we're standing. First, they would have to stop outside of that locked gate. Now there was no armed security waiting for them when they arrived here. But to the left of where that gate would be unlocked, there is a blue box that has a telephone in it. So the commander would get out of the vehicle and from right there start making their first of 4 phone calls calling the crew that was working downstairs. So the commander would be on that first phone call right there. The rest of the crew would be unlocking that gate to bring any equipment, vehicles, or supplies they needed into the complex. While they were doing all that, the commander would walk over here to the bottom of this stairwell to make their second phone call. And the commander only had 3 minutes to get from there to here to make that second phone call. That second phone call wasn't made in 3 minutes. That crew working downstairs was to assume there was a security risk, but they couldn't leave it vulnerable down there to come and check out what was taking so long. So if that was the case, then they were to contact security police. Although security was not at each complex one by one, they were patrolling all 18 in the Tucson area. They were about 15 minutes away from any one of them at any time. So if that crew got here, something seemed off, out of the ordinary, gave them the spookies, all they had to do is duck and cover, buy some time, and they knew backup would be on their way. Third phone call will happen right inside this first door we walk in down here. At first, the commander and only the commander would enter. Once this first door shut behind them, that commander was locked in there. It was an entrapment area. You'll see today it looks like a cage is surrounding you. So that was all electronically locked from that crew downstairs. That commander would also be on camera for that third phone call. In fact, the only camera that's in this entire complex was pointed at them in that very moment. That's so that crew working downstairs who can see that camera monitor and is on the phone can see that nobody had a gun to their head and was trying to force their way in with that oncoming crew. But in order for them to unlock those doors from downstairs, something else had to happen. Back at base, as part of that briefing, that commander was issued a code card. So at the missile wing, they would radio the correct code to the crew working downstairs. Commander would have the piece of paper, they would read it off. If it matched, then they would unlock those doors for the commander and the crew to go forward. But before the commander took one more step, he had to destroy, or she, that piece of paper. The way they did that, you'll see today there's a coffee can hanging right in front of you when you walk in. Commander would have held that piece of paper up over the coffee can and set it on fire and dropped it in there to destroy that evidence. The reason for that is they didn't want anybody to get a hold of that code. This was all top secret, highly sensitive. They couldn't afford for it to be left in the pocket, used as a bookmark for somebody to find later. So after all that, at the very bottom of the steps, before they can even get into the rest of the complex, they had to make one more phone call. I'll go over that one down there. Use the handrail, watch your step, no running, fighting, biting, shoving, pushing, pulling.
Go first, you want me to go first?
Got it?
No, you can go first.
What he just said.
Didn't hear him.
Oh, you're not listening. No running, jumping, pushing.
It's 55 steps, but it's not bad.
complex, this door would be shut. So the commander would go to this phone right over here to make that last phone call. Only on this one, they were gonna pick up and say, press the button. Don't worry, that has nothing to do with launching the missile. There is no button that launches the missile. But they would press open here at the exact same time as they were in the control center on a device just like this. Those two open presses happening simultaneously would allow these 4 electronically interlocking pins to move out of the way so this door could then open up. Now, a joke I like to tell is that the lowest ranking crew member had the task of opening this door every time they came down. The reason for that is there's actually 4 of these blast lock doors in the complex. Each one of them weighs 6,000 pounds, so 3 tons. Beef Beauty, they constructed these with I-beams that were filled with concrete, welded together, and then they were all cut to fit these openings that were sealed in the neoprene edging all the way around. So once all 4 were shut, it was airtight. No good air was escaping, no bad chemicals, radiation was going to seep in here. It's also going to protect the crew from the launch of the missile or any hazardous fumes or vapors if there was a fuel leak from the missile all the way down there, as long as they were all shut. So they had a policy. You open one, you shut it, and after that was shut, then the next one could open up after you. Reason for all that, well, especially this one right here, where you guys are standing right now is the soft area of the complex. So if there was a near-miss nuclear attack a mile or so away from here, none of this would exist anymore. It would have been devastated. Once we go forward through this portal, we begin the hardened area of the complex, meaning it would withstand that near-miss attack. But I said near-miss. Still had to be about a mile away from here. Anything before a mile was considered a direct hit, and no matter what they did, it was not assumed to survive that. What they did do, though, is the walls are 4 foot thick. The floors and ceilings are 5 foot thick, with some of the biggest rebar that you'll ever find reinforcing all of that concrete. Up where we checked you guys in, there's a stand there. Not sure if anybody saw it, but it shows the size of the rebar they used in the construction here. If you missed it coming in, check it out, because it might impress some of you. What's in your house is maybe the diameter of a dime, or like your pinky, where this was like the diameter of a Red Bull can. So they actually built mobile concrete pouring plants at each silo to do all that concrete pouring as one continuous pour. So there was no voids, breaches, just like they would for a bridge or a dam or something like that. So also when we go forward, I'm just going to point out some things that are pretty specific. Shock absorbency. If it was a critical piece of equipment, they wanted to survive a shock wave that would come from that near miss attack. You'll see it has shock absorbency on it. The first 2 I'm going to point out to you are these electric panels right to the left right here. You'll see they're hung on hydraulic pistons, so to say, and they put extra room on the conduit going to them, the wires going to them, so if it went like this, it wouldn't just yank the electricity straight out of it. So let's check it all out. Follow me, watch your head, watch your step. It gets tight.
No, last time I was there, they said they had to take them all apart. And the Russians came over with their planes and took pictures, and they were allowed to keep this one as a museum. And once the pictures were taken, and after that they were filled in. They're going down there after. That's where the missile is.
Oh, the missile that goes through. That's a tour.
They'll be going there after this part.
Where are you from? Missouri. Where are you from? Missouri? St. Louis. Oh. I have a friend that's from Vancouver. Oh, we're from Edmonton. I'm from Alberta. North Canada. From Canada.
This is where he wants volunteers.
Takes my picture.
Keep coming all the way. There is this bench in here. We're going to be in here for about 20 minutes. So just if you're the first one, don't sit on the very end, because then it's a seesaw. You're safe right there. All right, cool. There you go. Yep. There we got it.
I might stand anyway.
All right. All right, well, walking into this room, we all actually cross a very short bridge to get in here. It's about 2 feet long. Reason for that short bridge is if you get a chance to look to where the floors would normally meet, exterior walls, you'll see that these floors do not. We, all this equipment, that 4-person crew, are suspended on these 8 shock isolating springs that surround the room. Actually, all 3 levels of this part of the complex are suspended on those 8 springs. Reason for that, right up above us, was the crew quarters. So they had a pair of bunk beds up there, a very basic kitchen, a bathroom with a shower. That up there was the only place a crew member was allowed to be alone. Everywhere else, you'll see it plastered around that says no lone zone, 2-man policy, buddy system, always more than 1 person. But up there, they could have taken their 4-hour break up there, take a snooze or eat a meal, something like that. So yeah, each crew member had a 4-hour break and that's 24-hour break. Down below was the maintenance area. There was a 28-volt power supply for the missile down there, battery backup generator, as well as various heating, plumbing, cooling equipment. And there's actually rows of panels like this that was all communication equipment down there, right below us. So, reason for all the shock absorbency is that 4-person crew that was in here were in charge of monitoring the missile in the silo, using all this equipment, any activity happening above ground, and also if we had that attack that was coming here, it was up to them to use all this equipment to launch that retaliation strike. So they wanted to make sure once that 4-person crew was in here, we had a chance to launch that retaliation. So there would have been 2 officers sitting in these chairs. I'm going to ask 2 of you to help me out today.
He's a veteran.
All right, yeah. You can come over here. Yeah, just come this way. Just watch that phone. So yeah, let's not touch anything unless I tell you to, because this is all historic. They don't make it anymore. I'll let you know when to touch them. So yes, you would have been the commander, and you would have been the deputy. The 2 of you were also armed at all times. In fact, you were the only armed personnel in this room at any time. So each one of you had sidearms at all times. As you could imagine, they want to make sure all this and you, the crew, was nice and protected while you were in. And it's great we have a female sitting here, because I can point out after 1978, there was female officers sitting in these chairs as part of a combat position, but not until 1978. So, as well as you 2 being in here, there were 2 enlisted members at all times. They're going to be imaginary, working right beside me today. I'll talk about them, and then I will talk about the roles that you 2 have. So, first one was standing here using these panels. This was the MFT, also known as Missiles Facilities Technician. So they were using these panels here to monitor the heating, plumbing, and cooling systems. Also some of the fueling system as well. So this complex uses a chilled water system, water moving through here constantly to keep the missile all the way down there, about 250 feet away from here, at 60 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. So its tolerance was between 58 and 62 degrees. They liked it right in the middle at 60. So you could imagine a lot of pumps, a lot of valves have to do with any of this system. Something lit up here, they had a potential maintenance issue, a repair issue. That did not mean that they were running down there themselves to go and fix it. They would have likely turned to you, deputy, and asked you to contact the appropriate maintenance squad. Reason for that, it was up to you, deputy, to handle all external communications. That's why you have the radio and communication devices right behind. Also, when that maintenance squadron would come here, they would check in with you, deputy, to let you know where they were going to work on the missile, because it was up to you to handle all personnel activity. The way you did that was pretty old school, but quite effective. So you would have grabbed this fancy grease pencil right here, and you would have used this locator board to mark their location. Let's say they were heading down to level 7. You would mark their names right there on level 7. Now I say level 7 for a reason. We're on level 2 right now. We're about 35 feet below ground. we're going to see the missile from level 2 as well. Once we're down there, there are 9 levels to that silo. So 9 floors, there could have been work happening at any one. So, safety, security reasons, they wanted to make sure you knew where everybody was at all times. Alright, so the other enlisted person was standing over here monitoring these panels. And I am sorry, Commander, but this was known to be the smartest and most intelligent person that was in this room. The reason for that is they were the ballistic missiles analyst technician. Already that's hard for me to even get out of my mouth. But what it means is they had the major electrical systems and the guidance and targeting system on their plate. And this is how part of that guidance system worked. This very early computing right here. Punch tape. All this data was punched into Mylar. And they chose Mylar for a reason, because it wasn't going to stretch, warp, or degrade like normal tape. And this data punched in here would last. Although this is archaic, it is extremely stable. And unless you have these reels of tape, you will not get the data that is on here. So it's really hard to hack this. But anyways, each one of these holes punched in here represents a piece of coordinate information. So the Titan II had 3 predetermined targets, known as 1, 2, and 3. Those 3 targets would have been on those 2 reels of tapes. It was up to the BMAT to make sure that all worked correctly, the guidance system. And the big part of that was the power. They had to make sure the power stayed running. Gyroscopes had to stay rotating, and they had to stay neutralized at all times. So, Commander, you had 4 people down here for a 24-hour shift. Each one had that 4-hour break, likely taking upstairs. You still had about 20 hours to fill all of your times throughout the day. So, now they didn't let them have TV upstairs, believe it or not. If they were up there, they wanted them to be resting. So sleeping, eating, something like that. But they did have a TV right in this room. And it only got about 2-3 channels max. And at midnight, back then, TV was cut off. They were getting white noise. But they did all have Ataris, actually. Every silo had an Atari system, and I was told they played quite a bit of Pong in this room. Because yeah, it was a pretty boring job, most of it. But that is definitely not what you guys were doing all day. Not at all. One of the things that you would have done to fill some time and occupy you guys, and this was really important, is you had to make sure this thing worked. So you would have been opening up that technical manual right there, and you would have been using that to guide you and that crew through a full-on system shift. So every light, every dial, every button, every meter, every gauge, all had to work. We never knew when or if that attack was coming. It's not like they were going to get on the phone and say, hey, we're sending missiles on Tuesday, get ready to send yours back. It would not have happened. So, Commander, this thing always had to be able to reach one of these targets. Which one's lit up right there? 2. Okay, so target 2. Do you think if you were the commander back then, you would know where target 2 was? Like, globally, specifically, where it was located? Yeah, great. Maybe you are the smartest person. Yeah, the truth is, none of these 4 crew members ever knew where this missile was going once it left here. The reason for that is psychological. This was a city buster. That city could have had 10 million people living there. But they thought if the 2 of you knew that, you got a launch order in here to turn those keys. If it came down to it, you might put your hands up and go, oh, I don't want to be responsible for that much casualty. Or if you have a distant relative, an aunt, or a loved one that you actually liked that lived in that area, you might be responsible. But the only time that would have happened is if we were under attack. We would not have been a first strike. So we had to know we were under attack. So back then, and even today, NORAD would be using a network of radars to monitor the skies. Even Canada is helping us with this. So they're going to have to see on radar that missiles were heading our way and an attack was imminent. Then they got to get in touch with the president. The president would have to be notified, and then the president would have to authorize the use of a weapon. So the president would have a briefcase carried around with him at all times. It's known as the nuclear football. The president was going to open that briefcase up. Once he opens it up, there was no button in that briefcase like you might see in the movies. No, but there would have been documents, and those documents have launch codes. So those codes have to make our way here and quick. So from the president, it would go to the Pentagon. Pentagon would gather those codes, then they would deliver those codes to Strategic Air Command. Strategic Air Command is at Alpha Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. There, they would get those codes. They would put them into an emergency action message to deliver them to all 54 silos. Strategic Air Command also has to give word to the air bombers in the sky. And then after the Pentagon, word would get to the Navy to attack from the sea. Because if we were under attack, we were sending it from land here, ground-based ICBMs, air bombers in the sky, and submarines. That's part of that nuclear triad. That was one big Lone Star. So I am going to play an example of that emergency action message for you guys that was containing that launch code. You guys can open those up, it's not really top secret. Before I play this though, I want to tell you guys something. Yes, this was a very boring job. However, every day that crew came down here, they were under the assumption that today could be the end of the world. And any emergency action message, whether it was road conditions, a bad storm, or a launch code, would have started the same way. So it wasn't until very early on in that message they would know what was what. So anytime they heard this sound, I've been told, they would go from being bored, laxy daisy, to their stomachs sinking, dropping, going, oh no, this could be. So the simulation would have happened the same way as well. So as part of that simulation, you're going to hear a phonetically pronounced alphanumeric code. The first character of the word you hear, so the first one is going to be alpha, you would have written A down. Then the number you hear, you would write that number down, all in sequence. The two of you aren't going to write today, and the rest of you, I just want you to try and keep track of what it is you're hearing, okay? Clear as day, right? Yeah, definitely not the AC quality audio we've all gotten used to. Well, the good thing is, well, the two of you would have been writing, so that would have been helpful. You also would have had a lot of practice understanding and comprehending what all that was. But that was about 17 characters that we just heard, so it was cut short. If it was a real thing, it would have been 41 characters. So after the two of you wrote all 41 characters out, you were going to swap notebooks. So go ahead and swap notebooks. And then you guys had to make sure you both heard and wrote down the same information. You had to know that you heard the same thing. And then after that, the two of you would have to agree to open the go to war save. So it's actually right in this room. Go to war save, commonly known as also EWO or emergency war order save. So it's right over here. Looks like a filing cabinet, but it's bright red on the top. Now some of you might notice that there are two locks on that safe. The reason for that is each of you officers would have had your own locks. And you only knew your own combinations to your own lock. So every time you came to work, you brought your locks with you. So the only got unlocked when we were doing a change of alert, a simulation, and this one never happened, a launch. So you guys unlock that, you're gonna pull that drawer open and get the keys. Two keys to launch the Titan II missile. One key was going to be inserted right here, and the other was inserted all the way over here by you. So we had two keys, 7 feet away from each other, because they didn't want any one person to be able to reach and turn both those keys. But before you could do anything with those keys, you needed confirmation. So in that safe, at all times, there were about 40 of these hard plastic cookie cards. So you had to know which one to grab, Commander. The way you knew that is the first 2 letters that would have came through on that code would have matched with the correct code to grab. So you would have pulled that out, slapped it over your knee to get that top secret envelope out, that you would have torn open as fast as you can to get this. This was a 2-factor authentication code. So if this code matched with what came over the radio communications, they knew it was a real launch order. Nobody hacked into the comm systems and was trying to do a terrible thing. So after that matched up, then the 2 of you would start to crack that code or decipher that code, because you needed 2 pieces of information before you could turn those keys. The first one was the launch time. It was really important we knew what time to turn those keys so we weren't running and smashing into each other or the air bombers on the way over there. So launch time would have been given and kept on this clock right here. It chose this clock because it was set to a completely different time zone than this room is. So that's a 24-hour clock. This one is 24 hours as well, only this one was set to Arizona time, where that one is set to Greenwich Mean Time, the world clock, commonly referred to as Zulu time. So reason for that, so it would be the same time here as it was at the Pentagon or a strategic air command. 2 of you didn't have to worry about, wait, AM, PM, are they talking DC time? Do I carry the 1? No. Ticks here, you turn those keys, clear, simple, easy. No confusion. But in order for those keys to work, you had to unlock the missile. Yeah, they put a lock on the missile. So in that code, 6 characters would have been given. Those dial right here. Once all 6 are correct, what it does, 4 butterfly valves would be unlocked. So the Titan II had 4 of these valves. This thing wasn't going anywhere until it was unlocked. It was stuck. So code gets entered, it unlocks, and then when you turn those keys, the valves would swing open, and that's what would allow the 2 fuels, hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide, to mix together, and that's what creates the hypergolic reaction that ignites those ignitions. Yep. Yeah, they figured sometime, I think 1976 actually. All it would take is for 2 officers to go corrupt, grab those keys and launch. So after 1976, they added this. You needed a combination. Some people tell me 6 seems kind of weak, and they had all day down here. They could have guessed. Well, there's 17 million possible combinations, and this had a counter on it. If it was entered wrong more than 7 times, this whole device was locking out. Those keys weren't working, the missile wasn't going anywhere, and they were probably going to jail, because that would have meant incorrect access. So we'll assume that code is entered correctly. The keys are inserted. Launch time's ticking away. We're about a minute away. You'd be watching this clock like a hawk to let the crew and the commander know we were a minute away. Once these 2 keys are turned at the same time, it only takes 58 seconds for that missile to be out of the silo. Only takes 58 seconds to launch this missile. It's pretty fast. The predecessors of this missile, the Atlas and Titan I, those would have been in hardened protected silos as well, but in order to launch those missiles, they had to hoist them above ground, fill them with fuel. On a good day, all that took about 20 minutes to happen. 20 minutes is too long. A nuclear war happens really fast. It only takes this missile, the Titan II, 35 minutes to reach a target up to 6,300 miles away from it. So yeah. All right, so what's gonna happen is you guys are gonna help me out by turning these keys in a second. When you do, that 58-second launch sequence is going to light up right here. As it lights up, each button, I'm gonna call out everything that would have been happening down on the missile. And again, we're not really launching anything. Don't pretend. This is not the end of the world that I know. Right. So, hand on your key. Don't turn anything yet. Yeah, you might have to stand. The chairs don't. Hand on your key. Don't turn anything yet. So, Commander, in a moment, you're going to do a countdown from 3 down to 0. And then at 0, both of you will turn all the way as far as you can go towards me, or clockwise. Yep, all the way. And then just hold until I tell you to let go. Okay, go ahead.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Turn and hold. All right, you can let go. Launch enable. That means that code was, you can let go too. That code was correct. Those valves are unlocked. They're going to swing open. Now we have battery activated light. So on the Titan II, there were 2 dry batteries that were never charged ahead of time. An electric knife down there would be piercing a bladder bag and force feeding electrolytes into those batteries, charging them as we speak. It takes 28 seconds. That's so the missile will have its own power source. And it will be disconnected from the 28 volts down below. APS power, yep, batteries are charged. Next, we're gonna have a bell ring to let us know that silo cover door is opening all the way up. So, silo soft. That means the missile is not protected, but it's gonna be able to exit. Hooray for us. Guidance go lit up. BMAT did a good job. Missile knows where it is in space. It knows where it's going. We're gonna have a loud klaxon alarm ring in here, a fire alarm, fire in the engine, and liftoff. So that's it. Gone. Yeah. That quick launch that we just witnessed is what made this such a threat and a deterrent to the Soviet Union.
Just a question. Once we did that, is there any way of stopping it?
No. Nope. Once those keys were turned, that code was in there, it was gone. There was no whoopsie button on the Titan. There's no, because there was no on-ground control. It was all on board. So once that, it's a ballistic missile. Once it leaves the silo, it's like a bullet coming out of a gun, and it's going towards the target it's intended to go. Yeah. This does say abort here, but if that lit up, this crew had a very serious problem. Our problem was that missile was stuck. It had aborted itself. Something prevented this launch sequence from going all the way through. They had to put their thinking caps on quick. So, the caveat to that though, well, let's talk about this. If this was the real thing, here's what it would have looked like. That crew would have had 30 days of oxygen left in these 3 wells. Their air supply shaft would have shut off. That was to keep good air in here and any radiation out of it. Down on level 3, they had some canned water, some emergency rations to last those 30 days. They also would have only had 2 hours of power left from that battery backup. So they would have been in the dark. And their only way out of here is that stairwell that we just walked down would have likely been devastated. So on level 3, it looks like that. There's a tunnel. Only on level 3, it would have a bubble, this escape hatch, emergency exit on it, that they could have opened up. And then they would have had to crawl through that. And it was a 40-foot climb up a ladder all the way to the top. And hopefully they could get that escape hatch opened up at the top. I say hopefully, meaning there wasn't a huge piece of rubble or debris sealing that crew in here for the rest of the term. So that's just something to think about those crew members who came down here and did this for us. So again, it's very good this never happened. And the other thing is, they didn't even give the crew any Geiger counters, dosimeters. They had no way of knowing what was happening upstairs. So there was no cameras. Yeah. Pretty eerie. Yeah.
So each silo, they have a arms to the different location.
I don't know.
So it's, I mean, I'm talking about the spatial location. It's, you can change it, like each silo go to Moscow, another silo go to China. You
I
don't
don't know. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
a specific
that
one.
is all. Only people at high levels of intelligence or
No, I mean
defense.
that they only have one target to each silo.
Yeah, well, they could have had 3, but they were always aimed at 1. But they would only be known as target 1, 2, and 3. To change any of those, there was like a general
So you
coming
have
in
to
here.
change it.
You have to unlock it. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
But before you launch that, you only have one target.
It would have been predetermined, preset ahead of time. Yeah. None of
How
it.
they
No one
can
knows
change
where
it.
it's going.
Nobody knows where it's going.
No,
And
but-
still to this day. I mean, yeah, we could assume Moscow, blah, 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 but here's the thing. Some of these targets, the Soviet Union's been broken up.
Right.
And some of those people are our friends now, you know?
Yeah.
So like the missile museum that they were using in the Soviet Union, That museum is in Ukraine. What does that tell you, Ukraine? Yeah. All right, so let's go look at the missile. It's going to be straight down that long cableway access tunnel. Go ahead, watch your head on the way. I'll meet you guys down there.
It has so much to get through. Oh, I see. There's a good chance.
But when they check it, the pocket, so they cannot check it out for launch, right? They already checked it off.
It would have been there already.
And how long would it take the traffic of the function all the way to the airport?
No, 25.
So the crew must have had special psychological tests before.
Oh yeah, yeah, extreme. They were like extremely bad and constantly. If they reported they were having nightmares or anything like that, they were gone. Yeah. Yeah.
That cage hatch tube.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's on level 3, but it's the
Yeah.
same intake. I can show you.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Awesome.
That's the suits they wore for fueling up and stuff,
rocket
right?
fuel handlers.
Yeah.
And those are all patches. Those markings on those suits.
Mhm.
Pretty crazy.
We're both tired. That's
Oh.
like 21 years
Oh
old.
wow. Oh yeah.
I'm right behind you.
No MRIs for it. I'll be right there.
Yeah. The tunnel to the missile. Hello.
Hello.
I get all recorded, eh? Once you go up top, you can look down into the missile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. This is so neat. Oh, he's right there.
And there's the missile.
That's the
Once we go outside, there's windows up top. You can look down. You can see it.
Yeah, that's. And then all the way down that way. Next to it.
Yeah, and if you can make your way over to that last window that's hiding in the dark, that one actually has a mirror that you can look down the side. But anyways, no matter how you look at it, out those windows is the largest, heaviest, deadliest ICBM that was ever deployed by the United States. So that Titan II standing out there is 103 feet tall, 10 feet in diameter. When it was full of fuel, it would have weighed 330,000 pounds. This one, good thing for us, doesn't have any of that nasty fuel in it. Weighs about 15,000 pounds. Although this is a real Titan II rocket, came off the same assembly line as the rest of them from the Martin Company. This is not the missile that was standing here on alert as part of the program that had the bomb. This one never had a bomb. So this was a training missile that they kept in Texas at Shepherd Air Force. So after the program ended, they took the original missile out of here with big cranes, 3 pieces at a time, actually. So there's 3 stages to the Titan II. They took each one out, took it apart, took it out. Then they brought this one in, reverse order. They put it together right inside of the side. Now, if we would have launched one of these from right here inside of the cylinder, it would have had the
Excuse me.
force of two 747 jumbo jets going off at the exact same time.
Another window here.
First 5.5 minutes of that flight was powered by engines. And that was to get the bomb, which would have been at the very top in that nose cone there, out of the atmosphere. Once out of the atmosphere, the reentry vehicle, that's the part with the bomb, would separate, and then it was a projectile heading towards its target, again, up to 6,300 miles away from here in about 35 minutes. So as you could imagine, launching one of these right inside the cylinder would have been a lot of energy. In order to launch it from right inside the silo, they had to dampen some of that energy so it didn't just shake apart on the way out. So they did that in two ways that I know about. First thing they did is they wrapped the silo with those metal panels out there. So those are full of a dense woven fiberglass. Those are sound acoustic panels. That's going to help dampen some of the sound energy. The other thing they did is they used water. So between levels 4 and 6 of the silo, there was a 100,000-gallon deluge tank. So once those keys were turned, those tanks would open up, water would rush to the very bottom of the silo. That was right before those engines were. So, bottom of the silo, it looks like this over here. There's a photo. It's shaped like a W, or two skateboard ramps coming together. So, reason for that, all that water is down there. Fire is going to light right up above it. Fire and water, many of you know, physicists, create steam, a lot of steam. Turns out that steam is really good for absorbing kinetic energy, the vibrations that would occur. That's how they got this out of here in one piece. And then the bottom of the silo is shaped like a W for a reason. On either side of that, you guys won't be able to see them because they're covered up by the silo cover door. There were exhaust fans going all the way up to surface level. And we'll come up here and I will show what it would have looked like at a launch on the TV. It's just going to take a second. So the missile will go straight up. All that gas, fire, smoke will exit out of the side. So you guys are free to look out those windows, but I'll tell you this. The Titan II was not only used as a weapon of mass destruction. In fact, very early on, NASA bought the Titan IIs from the Martin Company, but they used them for the Gemini space program. So instead of the re-entry vehicle having a huge 9 megaton bomb in it, this was used to carry a space capsule, the Gemini space capsule, which allowed us to do low Earth orbits with 2 astronauts. And yes, Neil Armstrong was actually in that space capsule, so to say, riding a Titan II to get there. And after this was ever used as a missile, they used 14 of these to launch satellites. So the last launch of the Titan II was actually in 2003. And that gave this program a lifespan of about 40 years. So not too bad when you think about tax dollars and effort spent. The other thing is, I'll tell you about that. This complex we're in right now, it took them 29 months to build this. All 54 silos were built within 3 years each. So all the welding, all that concrete pouring, all the digging, all the plumbing, all the other stuff, 29 months. It's hard to even build that house at that time. Also, this whole thing, including the rocket and the bomb, was engineered before the first computer calculator was ever invented. So there's a lot of math, a lot of might that made this happen. So, yeah.
Once you get up top, one of the doors is open with glass on top. You can look all the way down to the missile. This is where you get your best pictures of it. That's your souvenir for being the commander.
Look.
Yeah. You see?
Nice.
You know.
We'll do it later. Oh, that's awesome.
That's a keepsake for you.
I know, that's awesome. Oh my Lord. Oh.
refueling suits.
Yeah, imagine they get burned or something.
Pipes.
Holy crap, look at that. Oh, those are the doors.
Yeah, they're thick. Six. 6,000 pounds each, 3 tons.
Oh, I'm glad that.
I did too. I thought it was
Interesting. Yeah, I know. You know what Canada used to have? Like all across the border.
This right here, so that platform right there is about 50 feet high. So I'm pointing that out to let you know if the Titan II was standing right next to it, it'd be twice the height of that standing right there. Hard to get a gauge of what that looks like from underneath. Now, during the SALT Treaty, or the end of the Cold War, we signed a SALT Treaty. Basically, that was an arms reduction. So, to keep a missile here as part of the museum and to honor that treaty, we had to modify this one so they wouldn't count it as part of our arsenal. So we did that by stopping that silo cover door from ever opening up. So you see these concrete blocks over here in front of those steel triangle shapes. When this was an active missile, those were empty. That door would have gone all the way to those braces right there. So we poured those there because they know, and we know, we're not going to try and launch a nuclear weapon with the door stuck halfway shut. It's not really going to work out for us. It's also stuck halfway open though. It has those angled windows on it that we put in as part of the museum. The reason for those windows isn't only for you guys. Although I've been told that is the best view if you're able to get on your tippy toes or be tall enough from the top down. But the reason for those is so any superpower want to can look on it, check on it, and see that this one, the re-entry vehicle or the nose cone, has a hole cut into it. So from way up there, they can look into that small hole on the re-entry vehicle and see there's no bomb in this one. It's an empty vessel, a shell, only here to preserve this important moment of history. So the rest of the tour is self-guided, signs that take you around the path. And I'll also be in the visitor center to point anything out and bring questions. Besides that, thank you guys
Some refueling trucks, I guess. Corrosive U.S. Air Force. Nitrogen tetraxide. Sounds nasty. That's the big sirens, eh? That go off. There's the sirens.
Did you get the whole thing?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's cool.
Okay. What they did, they got launched from Canada all the way from Canada. So they said, oh, this accident happened. Oh, the air balloons. Yes. They just found another balloon. Oh, did they? But they did. They called
There's a view of the missile down below.
Yeah.
You know what, Canada and China are kind of.
You wanna take a look. See, look there, Sharon. Just come over here. I'll lift you up so you can see it. Clean the window a bit. You can see down.
I'll float the sun though.
Oh yes, my shadow is going to be in there. Okay, I'm just going to take a picture like that. We'll see how it goes.
Can you see down there, Sharon?
I can't see, but I can.
Now you can see when you come back. You can
Yeah.
see.
Just clean the window.
Okay. Yep.
directly in the window. You are right.
No.
Okay.
No.
I gotta take it like this, maybe.
Yeah, as close to the window as you can.
Oh.
不清楚嘛。
Okay.